You and I have had an opportunity of living in a period of time in which we have seen nations who have existed for decades disappear in a matter of weeks. We live in a time in which we're seeing the structure of whole parts of the world being changed. We're seeing boundary lines drawn anew. We're living in a period of time that very few people have the privilege of living. We are watching as nation after nation is being reformed. Things are changing all the time. Things that will affect your life and mine in a very, very definite way. You see, when a nation is built on the might and the wisdom of man, then it becomes necessary that that nation go the same way that man goes, and that's to decay and collapse. It's true of every nation. It always happens that way. I have at home in my library a book, a history book. The author spent 15 years in research on the book. And the title of the book is The Decline and Fall of Practically Everybody. Very, very true. You see, we in the United States are living in a period of time in which we have seen a country reach its apex, its zenith, and now is beginning to go down on the backside. I don't know about you in Australia, but you can see certain things that are in place that is happening in our countries. For instance, way back in the beginning of our nation, one of our forefathers made a statement that is very, very true. I want you to listen to what he has to say. Democracy cannot exist as a permanent form of government. It's quite a statement. Democracy cannot exist as a permanent form of government. Why not? Listen. It can only exist until the voters discover that they can vote themselves money from the public treasury. Once they learn that, okay, from that moment on, the majority always votes for the candidate who promises the most benefits from the public treasury. And that's what we're in the United States right now in the election. It's happening in place. People are looking for the candidate that's going to promise them the most, give them the most benefits from the public treasury. That's what they're looking for. As a result, a democracy always collapses over loose financial policy and always followed by dictatorship. The average age of the world's greatest powers has been 200 years. Very true. And we have watched our country as it has grown until it has reached an apex. You see, countries come into existence because of certain things. We see things happening over in the Commonwealth of Russia today that you will watch will begin to change. You can see it in the United States. You can see it in Australia. You see, countries come into existence because people want something better. They really find themselves in bondage. It's the way people are. People here in Australia were. People in the United States were. They didn't like the situation they were in. They were in bondage, and so they wanted something more than what they had. And this inspires people to reach out and develop something what we would call spiritual faith. They have faith. They begin to say they can do more than that, and they want something more than that, and they build on that, and they reach out and desire more than that, and the spiritual faith that they have produces what you would call courage. Courage to do something about it. And so a country says, no, we want our independence. Courage said we will be free. And because of this courage to do something about it, it produces liberty. And man reaches out and says, we want our independence, we want this, and that nation reaches out and does that, and they become free men and women. And any nation that's ever existed, when they got to that point, where they wanted to be free and they reach the liberty, it always produces something, and that's called abundance. It just does that. In the United States, we've experienced that. The last 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 years, we've had an abundance. Time in which people didn't have to do much. They had about everything they wanted. You could exist and didn't hardly have to work. Great abundance. But any time, dear friends, that you have abundance, you got a problem, because it produces selfishness. You see, when this country was formed, when the United States was formed, it took men and women of courage. You didn't come over here to a raw land and reach out and begin to do something without having courage, without having character, without having fortitude. It took men and women that had a vision. And when you have a vision, you find the men and women accomplish something, they go about it. But all of a sudden, when that country has a great abundance, the vision leaves. And the Scripture says, where there is no vision, the people perish. Abundance brings that about, and as a result of that, you have selfishness. And we find ourselves in that condition today. After selfishness, you'll find that a nation moves into complacency. Just not really worried about anything, don't really care. Nothing motivates them much. Nothing there that really causes that person to reach out and say, I need to do this, and to have some fortitude and to go about it and try to accomplish something. And after complacency comes apathy. Just sit back, let it go, not worried about it. And then after apathy becomes dependence. Did you know? 97% of all the people in the United States of America will retire dependent upon the government. 97%. I don't know how it is here in Australia, if it's that way, but dependency, folks, always produces bondage. Right back to where they started. And thus you see nations that go up, cover, and come back down. As I said, anytime you build a nation on the wisdom and the might of men, it must follow the way man goes. That's always true.